Hey, welcome back. I am Blake B. This is BB's Finds. Today I'm wearing, as you can see, a very cool Star Wars shirt. This has like some original black and white art. This is before things were kind of refined. Um, it looks like, this is sort of like the conceptual art in almost, not like the Ralph McQuarrie art, but very early art for Star Wars. So today I have a very unique item. Instead of going through multiple things, as part of a segment or genre, separate type of collection. I'm just going to talk about one thing that I found recently within the last year. I'd like to go to thrift stores, as mentioned in the first couple of videos, to get things to resell, books and things like that. I also look for comic books every time I go for a little comic book collection I have. Um, I say little, but they're kind of taken over a little bit. I need to go through that stuff and see if I can whittle it down. There's some stuff that I've read, or definitely want to hang on to some things like some key issues. And I mostly try to go for Bronze Age books if I can find them, or just key issues in general. Anyway, I found this item in a bin of comic books, in one of these cool nifty diffy covers that you put in a 3-ring binder and you'd slip the item in. So what the item is today. It is Rocket Blast Comic Collector number 139 special Star Wars issue. So what's unique about this book, or magazine, it's more of a zine of sorts, is that it was published in October of 1977. Let's see right here. October of 77. Star Wars came out in May, Memorial Day of 1977, so late May. So this is probably four or so months into the Star Wars thing. Now, what's unique about the a new I'm speaking of A New Hope. What's unique about A New Hope is there wasn't much in terms of documentation of how things were made. That concept really only started to take hold with Empire Strikes Back after they realized they had a hit. There's a book called Once Upon a Galaxy that I've read about the making of Empire Strikes Back. They didn't have anything similar. There's no live first person accounts of how A New Hope was made in book form. I'm sure you can find interviews and things like that, but in terms of published works, Star Wars was completely a gamble. George Lucas was his passion project. He wasn't expecting it to be commercially successful, but because of the audience reaction and word of mouth and things like that, it became what it is today. So we have to remember 1977. So just a little history lesson before we get into looking at this item. 1977, movie releases in May. There was a demand for Star Wars action figures by Christmas time. However, the company called Kenner, who was producing the action figures, did not have the means or ways to produce those action figures in mass for Christmas time. So what happened was they would send families that would pre-order the Star Wars figures. I think it was a set of either 6 or 7 figures, rather than individual figures. They would send them a cardboard placard that showed pictures of what the figures would look like based on the prototypes. So this item, I bring that up because this item is, back then there was also no internet, so there's no real way to share information at instant speed. Is more just the groups of people creating fanzines and things like that, to share information, get the words out. It's sort of like, you can think about it like punk rock. In the day, punk rock was sort of this club. People, you didn't have the internet, so you couldn't become an instant expert on things. Like, you couldn't say like, okay, I'm going to buy this person's discography overnight, have it shipped to me, and then listen to it and digest it that way. You'd have to go and seek things out. I'm not saying that Star Wars was so obscure at the time that this was an exclusive club. What I'm saying is that there was a group of individuals that shared their love of Star Wars and immediately shared their love of Star Wars upon seeing it in 1977, and created items like this to share information and get more details about how things were done. So let's go through this. So on the cover we have this Darth Vader with an X-wing and Death Star in the background there. Darth Vader's iconic red lightsaber, as well as Darth Vader's custom TIE fighter right down there. This is the TIE fighter he flew trying to defend the Death Star. Just thinking about military techniques. I probably wouldn't, if I was Darth Vader, who was sort of like the leader of the Death Star, or sort of like the boss of the Death Star, would not send someone like that into combat in a ship like this. I would probably have this person, typical for leaders in true military warfare, to be either in a bunker or somewhere safe in a war room. So Star Wars is a little bit unique in that Vader was vulnerable when he went after Luke to sense the Force. Not many people read into it as much as I do. I mean, I kind of have the whole mythological angles and kind of philosophical angles from reading Joe Campbell and from watching the movies over and over again and comparing them to other things like Kurosawa, George Lucas's influence, other comic book sources that Lucas read, New Gods and things like that. Jack Kirby's New Gods, awesome. We'll have to do a video about that stuff some other time. Anyway, so let's dig in. So I'll kind of flip through and I'll show you some things that are unique. Here we have a picture of a Star Destroyer on the inside cover. Star Destroyer with laser beams, laser blasts. Millennium Falcon's flying through. This was actually never a scene in the movie where there was a Star Destroyer present near the Death Star with the Millennium Falcon. So this is sort of more of a like fan art type thing, maybe early ideas of Star Wars fan art. And here's a picture of the Death Star as well as a X-wing fighter, similar to the ones that are drawn on my shirt. It's very old black and white art, Star Wars. We've got the RBCC contributors. Look at this guy. That guy looks pretty awesome. He looks very 70s. Could be a guy who worked for Industrial Light and Magic. They were kind of like hippie, almost like hippie guys. They would smoke pot. And they actually were here in California in Van Nuys. They set up their workshop there, Industrial Light and Magic, and they had all these, they would just smoke pot all day long and build all these models and technical stuff. Here's a kind of an editorial page. Talk about kind of putting this magazine together. I haven't read this in full. I've read a couple of these articles. Here we have from the Adventures of Luke Skywalker. So this deals with the novelization. Here's a picture for you that deals with a little article that deals with the novelization and how it differs from the movie. One thing that's also unique about Star Wars is it was one of the first times that a movie was adapted into a comic book. They did a limited run. Marvel did a limited run of Star Wars books, 1 through 4. I'm trying to remember. Maybe 1 through 6. I have 1 through 4. 2 is a reprint. 1 I traded some kid back in the 90s, like a hockey card for Star Wars 1. Not in the greatest of shape, but still, it's a Star Wars 1 Marvel. Here's a picture of some fan art of Chewie and Han Solo with his blaster. This article deals with where the Marvel style went wrong. I kind of agree. It's a little jarring and kind of doesn't really compare well to the movies in terms of how it was drawn, things like that. Here we have some, looks like a cantina scene. This is a Kenobi and things like that. Some cool art. This is pretty unique. So here we have an interview with Mark Hamill. Probably one of the earliest interviews with Mark Hamill for Star Wars. It was done in September of 1976 at the World Science Fiction Convention in Kansas City. This is before the movie was even released, so people didn't know Mark Hamill was going to be a star at that time. Mark Hamill is actually a big fan of science fiction and comic books and things like that. Um, if you know anything about him, you know that he's a kind of a nerd at heart. He does the voice for Joker and Batman, among other things, so he's got that connection. He most recently did the voice for the scientists, Skeksis from Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. He's does great voiceover work. Here's a picture of him, 1976, with the interviewer. It looks like. Okay, and then we've got some art, more kind of fan art. This is called R2D2 and Toto 2. It's almost like a Mad Comics style art with Wizard of Oz characters and Star Wars characters. And then we've got Darth Vader, the man behind the mask. There's a picture of David Prowse, who plays Darth Vader. I think Darth Vader is pretty unique in that it was voiced by James Earl Jones, played by David Prowse. I'm trying to think if there's a stunt guy who did any work. Thought there was. Oh, it was Sebastian Shaw who did the face in Jedi. So there's actually three guys. Prowse, I think there was no real stunts, maybe lightsaber battles, but I think David Prowse pretty much did his own stunts. So it's Prowse, James Earl Jones is the voice, and then Sebastian Shaw as the is the face. And then of course Hayden Christensen in the prequels as Anakin / Darth Vader. Here we have the music of Star Wars with one of the modal nodes, one of the guys from the band in the cantina. Here we have some more Mad style stuff, Star Wars, kind of funny, they kind of satirical send-ups on Star Wars. What else we got? Darth Vader's Revenge, or What Happened After the Credits. So here they are in the Massassi throne room on Yavin 4 in Darth Vader's TIE Fighter. Somehow the prototype TIE Fighter made its way inside the temple and is blasting all the rebel heroes. This is a cool article right here. I love this drawing of the Tantive 4. That's the Corellian Corvette type ship that was in the opening shot of Star Wars being chased by a Star Destroyer. Star Wars Cosmos. I don't think I've read this article. Should probably go back and read it. Here we have the famous Greedo with Han Solo. Many people have warring words over who shot first. I am a person who thinks Han Solo shot first because he's the badass. But other people kind of take Lucas's word for the re-edit in 1997 and say, well, Greedo shot first and Han was doing this in self-defense. But I think that we all know Han Solo is the one who shot first. Here's a great piece of art right here. We've got the Millennium Falcon. This is the kind of the climax of the Death Star battle. The Millennium Falcon coming in and blasting the TIE fighters as Darth Vader's prototype TIE fighter chases Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing. Red 5. That's his call signal. Red 5. I think they brought that back with... pretty sure they brought that back with Rise of Skywalker, the Red 5 call sign. When Rey... not many people don't know who all's seen the movie, but they bring it back somehow. I don't want to give away how. Then it starts getting into more comic-y stuff, basic comic zine stuff, not so much Star Wars. Let's see. What else we got here? This is all just basic, comic stuff. Oh, this is awesome. Some stills from the 2001: A Space Odyssey. It was done in 1969, I believe. Some color stills from Star Trek. They're offering, $3 each. Nowadays, you can just look at that stuff online. You don't need to buy pictures. Oh, this is awesome. Frazetta. Frank Frazetta, one of the most famous fantasy artists. I've got a couple of his books as well. Probably have to do a episode on that. Um, and that's pretty much it. And then we got some advertisements and things that you typically see in the back of fanzines. And then the very back of this, we've got some awesome, awesome art. It's the Death Star laser beams that are coming together. There's about 7 beams that are coming together as one to obliterate a planet. We see the kind of initial stages of the planet getting obliterated here. Not so much, of the rocks and things floating through space as we saw in A New Hope with the Alderaan, destruction of Alderaan, when Leia refused to tell Tarkin and Darth Vader where the rebel base was. She said it was Dantooine, but they basically said nah, because they were really on Yavin, so she was trying to protect her rebels. But yeah, unfortunate. Obi-Wan Kenobi then sensed the disturbance in the Force, and that's how they came upon the Death Star, kind of in the general location of where Alderaan should be, because they were traveling there to get R2-D2 to the rebel leaders, or at least her father, who was on Alderaan at the time, Bail Organa. Played by Jimmy Smits in the prequels, and I believe the cartoons as well. So that's pretty much it. I got my cool Star Wars shirt on, my awesome Star Wars fanzine from way back in the day. Again, it's in terms of fandom, this is I feel like this is kind of a unique item. No internet back in the day. Very little was known about the movie. Very little was, marketed at that time in October of '77 about, trying to buy Star Wars paraphernalia. I mean, even in the '90s, it took me till the '90s to go to like Star Tours to find Yoda shirts, and now you can go to the 7-Eleven on the corner where you live and get grapes with Star Wars on it, or sodas or whatever. But it's funny how things have sort of just critical mass, I guess, in terms of the Star Wars marketing, which what it is what it is. I mean, Lucas is always going to be that, and Disney's always going to be that. But I like to enjoy the fandom element of the original trilogy. It really brings me back, nostalgia. I always say that we had 3 films in our imaginations as kids. That's really not necessarily true, because there was some books. There was the Jedi Master's Quiz book that I had. It was written by like a 13-year-old kid. Remember, his name was Rusty. I'll have to dig that book up sometime. And then there's also a Star Wars dictionary with all the characters. I think it was written right around the time of Jedi, when they had enough. It was probably about that thick, and they had enough characters and ships and things like that, like A-wing fighter and B-wing fighter and Amon from Jabba's palace, and different stuff. Bail Organa. Yeah, three movies in our imaginations, and now look at us. It's inundated. I mean, even Disney produces sub content. Lego shorts and things like that are. I mean, I haven't even seen all that stuff. So yeah, just wanted to share my love of Star Wars and this unique item, and I hope you all are well, and I will talk to you tomorrow.